Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk about the announcement that the Ministry of Immigration Canada announced on the 22nd of January. I wanted to break down in a video some of the considerations, some of the things that he said, and perhaps some strategies that persons can implement moving forward. So I'm going to be looking down a lot because there were quite a few points. I want to make sure that I capture all of them. So the first point being that they are putting a temporary cap, temporary for the next 2 years, the 2 years including 2024. This is temporary, which means maybe if they see different changes and things that they're looking for over the next 2 years, they will lift that cap. That portion of it, I get the sense that a lot of persons don't have a problem with it because indeed, everybody can't be let in, and of course there has to be a cap just to ensure that persons that are coming in, it is sustainable. So it is at a sustainable rate for the students, for the schools, for the country on a whole, because everybody wants to come to Canada because they also want a better life, right? So that was the first thing. So the cap, he did indicate, though, as well, that some provinces might have more of a cap. So a lot of persons are predicting or presuming that Ontario and BC will be counted in that cap. As you guys know, more than likely Ontario will be counted, but we don't know. And we don't want to make any assumptions at all. For sure, we know that there will be a cap this year on the number of international students that are coming in. So, what that means for you, honestly, that simply means that whatever applications you're making to Immigration Canada, those need to be solid applications, because only the persons with very properly put applications with proper backing, proper, you know, the sufficient amount of funds, they're doing courses and programs that will help the economy in Canada. Those are the things. So now our letter of explanation needs to be strong. You need to have a solid letter of explanation explaining from A to B. And I'll explain, for example. For example, if you do have enough money, considering the new increase of 20,635, you do have enough money, but even more so, you want to explain your study plan. So if you're somebody that's leaving high school, of course, your study plan will look a lot different from somebody that completed a bachelor's degree. And for persons that are switching career, have solid reasons why. So let's say, for example, you did a business administration bachelor's degree, but now you want to come and you want to do a PSW program. What would that study plan look like? You would definitely need to explain. Let's say, for example, your parent or your grandparent or somebody is struggling with the healthcare system in your home country. You want to say, based on my experiences, the experiences of my child, the experiences of my family member, I see that there is a need for it in my country. This is something that I always wanted to do, but it wasn't affordable at the time, or that wasn't the path that you went down. But now that been working for a couple of years and you've been assisting in this and this capacity, you now want to venture into a different career change. You want to go into a different career path, and you feel that now you're financially able to do so, and you have that backing, you have that proof of why. For example, if somebody has an autistic child and you want to change to do something in autistic and behavioral management, then you could say, right now I work as an engineer, but because of my autistic child, I would like to become a behavioral management person, so that explain, so that you can help your child more, but while you can help other parents to help their children. So something of the sort. What I'm saying is, if you're going to put your application in and it's not a solid application and it's not complete, like, you won't be able to convince the visa officer. So if you're somebody that's leaving high school, of course your study plan will look a lot different from somebody that completed a bachelor's degree. And for persons that are switching career, have solid reasons why. So let's say, for example, you did a business administration bachelor's degree, but now you want to come and you want to do a PSW program. What would that study plan look like? You would definitely need to explain. Let's say, for example, your parent or your grandparent or somebody is struggling with the healthcare system in your home country. You want to say, based on my experiences, the experiences of my child, the experiences of my family member, I see that there is a need for it in my country. This is something that I always wanted to do, but it wasn't affordable at the time, or that wasn't the path that you went down. But now that been working for a couple of years and you've been assisting in this and this capacity, you now want to venture into a different career change. You want to go into a different career path, and you feel that now you're financially able to do so, and you have that backing, you have that proof of why. For example, if somebody has an autistic child and you want to change to do something in autistic and behavioral management, then you could say, right now I work as an engineer, but because of my autistic child, I would like to become a behavioral management person, so that explain, so that you can help your child more, but while you can help other parents to help their children. So something of the sort. What I'm saying is, if you're going to put your application in and it's not a solid application and it's not complete, like you won't be able to convince the visa officer. Maybe it's best to rethink your program, rethink everything. um and if you're in doubt, reach out to an immigration consultant. No, is not the time to try to figure out and make mistakes. So that's where the cap comes into play, and that's how I would suggest dealing with the cap. However, just be mindful, a lot of persons are running around and thinking, oh, this applies to me, or what's gonna happen to me. This doesn't apply to everybody. So current study permit holders, you just continue to do what you're doing. It's not gonna affect you. Study permit renewals and persons in masters and doctoral degrees, the cap doesn't affect them. You can continue and go about your business. If you're interested in doing a master's program, doctoral program, you can go ahead, but it doesn't negate the fact that you need to have solid applications when you're submitting your study permit. Moving on to the next hot topic one is the attestation letter requirement that the immigration minister announced. They're saying for program levels, for different program levels, they now need attestation letter. But this is not implemented yet. This is not implemented yet. The minister announced it, and none of the provinces or territories seem to have anything in place. So he gave them until March 31st to actually make a move on it and to implement it. So there's nothing yet. We don't know what the process will look like. We don't know what the letter will look like. Nobody really knows what that will look like. And so we have to see which provinces will come out with it first. But as of right now, a lot of persons cannot submit study permit application because this was an effective immediate thing. But the attestation form does not apply to everyone, and there are some exemptions. Before I even talk about the exemptions, there was like a random change that happened on the government website that I noticed while editing this video. So before, a minor child in primary or secondary school was exempted. Students in master's, PhD, and other postgraduate program was exempt, that is graduate certificates and postgraduate diploma programs, and students applying to extend their study permit. But when I went to do the screenshot, I realized that they removed postgraduate programs. So persons that are in those programs applying to the colleges, unfortunately, will now have to wait for attestation form before they can go ahead and submit their study permit application. So now this cleared it up a bit for persons, but in not such a good way, because of course you wanted to go ahead and submit. But in the meantime, for persons that can't submit just yet, continue to prepare your application, the strong application. Continue to get your police record, continue to get those um, the bank statements that you need. Continue to write a proper study plan, letter of explanation. Just use the time to gather proper documentation. So the next thing is the PGWP eligibility changes. And this one, there's two things that happen. There's one thing that happened good and one thing we don't know. So graduates from master's program or short graduate level programs can apply for a 3-year work permit. So hold on a little bit where the graduate level programs is concerned, because that's also when I went on the website today, I realized that it says graduates of master's program will soon be eligible to apply for the 3-year work permit, and now it doesn't say short graduate level programs anymore, which means again persons with graduate certificate and persons with postgraduate diploma, if it's 1 year, you unfortunately seem to not be eligible. If it's 2 years, I presume it stays the same, where you can get that 3 years work permit. If you're doing a master's, PhD, you know that even if it's 2 years, you get 3 years, or even if it's 12 months, master's, you'll get 3 years. That's what they're saying, because they're putting a lot of provisions in place for a master's candidate. So if you're a master's or PhD candidate, this is great. These are great news for you. And I'm happy for those persons. For those persons that are not counted in the number, however, we'll just have to, pick up and try to find other ways and other strategies to move forward. So they said starting September 1st, PGWP will no longer be available to public private institutions. And I got a lot of questions and messages about this. So let me explain this part a little bit for you guys. So these public private institutions, it's not just random schools. So I'll explain kind of how, these programs have been somewhat eligible. And I didn't even know that this was a thing that schools were doing. So some of these DLIs that are not in, the, I guess, like the greater Toronto area or any of those big towns, and they have schools a little bit further out in the rural areas, they have been issuing curriculum to partnering private schools to offer their program. So for example, I don't want to call any school's name, but I'm gonna share the list, and this is not to target any school, it's just to explain. For example, Fanshawe College, most of their colleges are based in London, Ontario. However, to, I guess, grab more of the students that are interested to go to Mississauga and Toronto area, they actually partner up with a private college to offer certain programs. And by offering certain programs, the students would go to that private college campus and not to Fanshawe's actual campus, but they would be able to get away with a PGWP because the program falls under Fanshawe, even though it's not being offered at the Fanshawe College, but at the private institution. So I'll show you the list of the campuses that you guys should be aware of, because those campuses are the ones that if you go there, you won't get a PGWP, because that's a loophole in the system that the schools found some way to get more international students. And of course, the international students are unfortunately the ones that are being punished or, being reprimanded. It's unfortunate, but because the students didn't create the loophole, but it is a loophole that was created, and you know it's just really sad. But this is for persons that were worried. I don't send my clients to those places, so when I saw it, I knew that they weren't involved. But like I said, it is DLIs that found that loophole. The other news that I personally, as a bystander, I personally, as someone that help clients, I personally, as someone that encourages persons that want to migrate and take the opportunity for their families, this portion was a bit disappointing. So it's good to know that spouses of international students that are doing, again, master's and doctoral programs can continue to get open work permit. But the minister did indicate that in the coming weeks, they'll announce that spouses of international students in other levels that are interested in studying at other levels won't no longer be eligible for spousal open work permit. The reason behind it, guys, I honestly, I'm trying to figure out how how this will Like I don't know. Like I really don't know what's the thought behind this one. And it's just, I feel like it's sad. It's sad for persons that want to take that leap and want to take the opportunity and don't want to leave their family. Like I wouldn't leave my husband behind and I wouldn't leave my children behind. So it's, it's hard. This is a really tough one for persons that already have their acceptance letter and you're doing postgraduate level programs and you have your family. It's not official yet. It's not effective yet. They said in the coming weeks. We don't know if in the coming weeks they'll retract it. But I really, 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 really hope that they retract it. And I mean, there is already a cap, so we'll already decrease it, or if they need to decrease it more. But to make the spouse ineligible, I don't know. That one really threw me. Yeah, that one took me by surprise. However, what I did realize, and I don't really want to talk a lot of these things because I think people talking on social media has resulted in some of these. But I don't really want to say this out loud for too much people to hear. But there is actually still hope. So this is what I would suggest. If you are someone that wants your spouse to come, probably it's better to do a 1 year program so that you'll get a 1 year postgraduate work permit after. When you get your postgraduate work permit, then there's no rule that came into play yet, and I hope none will, that says when you're on PGWP, your spouse can come. So as of right now, we assume that your spouse still can come when you get to that stage. The reason why I suggest doing a shorter program is if you want to try to stay away from your spouse for at least that year and probably you or him can travel back and forth, then sure, go for it if this is really what you want. And then when you get to that stage, then they can join you. I'll tell you overall, to sum this all up, I'll tell you guys what I told one of my clients earlier is that if you really want to come to Canada and you really want, wherever you are and your country is probably not safe, or it's you've outgrown it and you don't want to stay there, and you really want to come to Canada, you want better for your children, and you want to fight this, go ahead, do what you need to do. But I'll say this: I'm all for coming. I'm all for coming to Canada, experiencing in this life, especially for those of us from third world countries. But do as much as you need to do to not lose too much. But if you get to the point, and I'm not talking about losing too much financially only, but if you get to a point where you're losing sleep, you're losing money, you're losing hours in your day trying to study for the English test 5, 10 times, you're trying to learn French, you're trying to do this, you're trying to, find out a way how you can get through the system to get here. If it's taking away so much from your life, I would say know what the point is, that too much is too much, and step away, because there are other countries that you guys could potentially look into. I'm not discouraging you from Canada, but don't get to the point where you lose too much. Think about it as a family. At what point is it too much? So try. You never know if you never try. So try until, but know that there is, set that boundary for yourself so that 10 years down the line you haven't wasted 5 years trying to figure out Canadian immigration. And the best thing that you can do for you and your family right now, talk to an immigration consultant or immigration lawyer about your case to get legal assistance and to get more insight. And if you want to talk to me, feel free to book a strategy call or just a short Q&A, and I'll be happy to talk to you guys. I can drop the website somewhere here. But that's kind of somewhere where I'm coming from. And because the amounts increase as well, I definitely recommend people doing shorter programs and, trying to apply for the PNP programs. So go to places that they are selecting people from PNP, or they're selecting from the rural communities. do those things so that you spend less time in school, you have to show less money, and you can push forward. But overall, there are a few other strategies that I have in place for my clients. And if you are somebody that you want to know about another strategy, of course, book a Q&A with me, or stay on this channel. I try to see how best I can you know provide strategies, but it's a kind of a case by case. So what I've done, all the questions that I gathered, a lot of persons that were having the same questions. So I kind of summarize all of them in, just my explanation overall. I hope it somewhat answered most of your questions. And, it's general. I can't really say because I don't know your specific situation. And finally, I want to say don't freak out because everything is not applicable to you, and it doesn't mean that the journey stops. They are putting restrictions in place to ensure that some level of integrity is maintained. That doesn't rule you out, especially if you have good intentions and you haven't been using the system in the wrong way. Until next time, guys, please, I wish I was here on better terms, but let's just look for the next few weeks what other announcements are coming, and hopefully some of these will be retracted.